Ulf Merbold, German astronaut and physicist. Ulf Dietrich Merbold, born June 20, 1941, is a German physicist and astronaut who flew to space 3 times, becoming the first West German citizen in space and the first non-American to fly on a NASA spacecraft. Merbold flew on 2 space shuttle missions and on a Russian mission to the space station Mir, spending a total of 49 days in space. Ulf Merbold for the STS-42 space shuttle mission. Born June 20, 1941, age 82. Graz, Thuringia, Germany. Status: retired. Occupation: physicist. Space career: ESA astronaut. Time in space: 49 days. Selection: 1978 ESA group. Missions: STS-9, STS-42, Euromir 94, Soyuz TM-20/TM-19. Merbold's father was imprisoned in NKVD Special Camp NR-2 by the Red Army in 1945 and died there in 1948, and Merbold was brought up in the town of Graz in East Germany by his mother and grandparents. As he was not allowed to attend university in East Germany, he left for West Berlin in 1960, planning to study physics there. After the Berlin Wall was built in 1961, he moved to Stuttgart, West Germany. In 1968, he graduated from the University of Stuttgart with a diploma in physics, and in 1976 he gained a doctorate with a dissertation about the effect of radiation on iron. He then joined the staff at the Max Planck Institute for Metals Research. In 1977, Merbold successfully applied to the European Space Agency, ESA, to become one of their first astronauts. He started astronaut training with NASA in 1978. In 1983, Merbold flew to space for the first time as a payload specialist or science astronaut on the first spacelab mission, STS-9, aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. He performed experiments in materials science and on the effects of microgravity on humans. In 1989, Merbold was selected as payload specialist for the International Microgravity Laboratory 1, IML-1, Spacelab mission STS-42, which launched in January 1992 on the Space Shuttle Discovery. Again, he mainly performed experiments in life sciences and materials science in microgravity. After ESA decided to cooperate with Russia, Merbold was chosen as one of the astronauts for the joint ESA-Russian Euromir missions and received training at the Russian Yuri Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. He flew to space for the third and last time in October 1994, spending a month working on experiments on the Mir space station. Between his space flights, Merbold provided ground-based support for other ESA missions. For the German Spacelab mission Spacelab D-1, he served as backup astronaut and as crew interface coordinator. For the second German Spacelab mission D-2 in 1993, Merbold served as science coordinator. Merbold's responsibilities for ESA included work at the European Space Research and Technology Center on the Columbus program and service as head of the German Aerospace Center's astronaut office. He continued working for ESA until his retirement in 2004. Early life and education. Ulf Merbold was born in Graz, in the Voigtland area of Thuringia, Germany, on June 20, 1941. He was the only child of 2 teachers who lived in the school building of Welsdorf, a small village. During World War II, Ulf's father Herbert Merbold was a soldier who was imprisoned and then released from an American prisoner of war camp in 1945. Soon after, he was imprisoned by the Red Army in NKVD Special Camp NR-2, where he died on February 23, 1948. Merbold's mother Hildegard was dismissed from her school by the Soviet zone authorities in 1945. She and her son moved to a house in Kirchschau, a suburb of Graz, where Merbold grew up close to his maternal grandparents and his paternal grandfather. After graduating in 1960 from Theodor Neubauer Oberschule High School, now Ulf Merbold Gymnasium Graz, in Graz, Merbold wanted to study physics at the University of Jena. Because he had not joined the Free German Youth, the youth organization of the Socialist Unity Party of Germany, he was not allowed to study in East Germany, so he decided to go to Berlin, and crossed into West Berlin by bicycle. He obtained a West German high school diploma, Abitur, in 1961, as West German universities did not accept the East German one, and intended to start studying in Berlin so he could occasionally see his mother. When the Berlin Wall was built on August 13, 1961, it became impossible for Ulf's mother to visit him. Merbold then moved to Stuttgart, where he had an aunt, and started studying physics at the University of Stuttgart, graduating with a diploma in 1968. He lived in a dormitory in a wing of Solitude Palace. Thanks to an amnesty for people who had left East Germany, Merbold could again see his mother from late December 1964. In 1976, Merbold obtained a doctorate in natural sciences, also from the University of Stuttgart, with a dissertation titled Untersuchung der Strahlenschädigung von Stickstoffdotierten Eisen nach Neutronenbestrahlung bei 140 Grad Celsius mit Hilfe von Ristwiderstandsmann on the effects of neutron radiation on nitrogen-doped iron. After completing his doctorate, Merbold became a staff member at the Max Planck Institute for Metals Research in Stuttgart, where he had held a scholarship from 1968. At the institute, he worked on solid-state and low-temperature physics, with a special focus on experiments regarding lattice defects in body-centered cubic (BCC) materials. Astronaut training. In 1973, NASA and the European Space Research Organization, a precursor organization of the European Space Agency (ESA), agreed to build a scientific laboratory that would be carried on the Space Shuttle. The Memorandum of Understanding contained the suggestion the first flight of spacelab should have a European crew member on board. The West German contribution to spacelab was 53.3% of the cost. 52.6% of the work contracts were carried out by West German companies, including the main contractor ERNO. In March 1977, ESA issued an announcement of opportunity for future astronauts, and several thousand people applied. 53 of these underwent an interview and assessment process that started in September 1977, and considered their skills in science and engineering as well as their physical health. 4 of the applicants were chosen as ESA astronauts. These were Merbold, Italian Franco Malerba, Swiss Claude Nicolier and Dutch Wubbo Ockels. The French candidate Jean-Luc Crétin was not selected, angering the President of France. Crétin participated in the Soviet-French Soyuz T-6 mission in June 1982, becoming the first West European in space. In 1978, Merbold, Nicolier and Ockels went to Houston for NASA training at Johnson Space Center while Malerba stayed in Europe. NASA first discussed the concept of having payload specialists aboard spaceflights in 1972, and payload specialists were first used on Spacelab's initial flight. Payload specialists did not have to meet the strict NASA requirements for mission specialists. The first Spacelab mission had been planned for 1980 or 1981 but was postponed until 1983. Nicolier and Ockels took advantage of this delay to complete mission specialist training. Merbold did not meet NASA's medical requirements due to a ureter stone he had in 1959, and he remained a payload specialist. Rather than training with NASA, Merbold started flight training for instrument rating at a flight school at Cologne-Bonn Airport and worked with several organizations to prepare experiments for Spacelab. In 1982, the crew for the first Spacelab flight was finalized, with Merbold as primary ESA payload specialist and Ockels as his backup. NASA chose Byron K. Lichtenberg and his backup Michael Lampton. The payload specialists started their training at Marshall Space Flight Center in August 1978, and then traveled to laboratories in several countries, where they learned the background of the planned experiments and how to operate the experimental equipment. The mission specialists were Owen Garriott and Robert A. Parker, and the flight crew John Young and Brewster Shaw. In January 1982, the mission and payload specialists started training at Marshall Space Flight Center on a Spacelab simulator. Some of the training took place at the German Aerospace Center in Cologne and at Kennedy Space Center. While Merbold was made very welcome at Marshall, many of the staff at Johnson Space Center were opposed to payload specialists, and Merbold felt like an intruder there. Although payload specialists were not supposed to train on the Northrop T-38 Talon jet, Young took Merbold on a flight and allowed him to fly the plane.